Yeah, hi. So as I mentioned, today is our first event. It's called Stressed or Stressing Social Natures, Urban Metabolism and Water Scarcity in Chile under a Neoliberal Paradigm. We will have Maria Christina Fragkou. She is an environmental scientist, currently working as an associate professor at the Geography Department at the Faculty of Architecture and Urban Studies at Universidad de Chile. She has a PhD in environmental sciences from the Autonomous University of Barcelona and a master's degree in environmental technology from Imperial College, London. She holds a bachelor's degree in chemistry, more precisely. Her main research topics are urban metabolism, urban sustainability, water management, energy policies, environmental justice, and political ecology. Today, she will be speaking specifically about desalination, water desalination plants in Chile, and the social environmental impacts they could have in our cities. So I leave you with Maria Cristina. And sorry, if you have, we will have a Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, you can just write them down here on the chat. So thank you so much.
Okay, I will share my screen first so that I'm okay with that, and then you can see this now, right? Like the first page. Okay. All right. So good afternoon to everybody. I'm very happy to be here. I'm thankful to Armando for the invitation. I didn't know this was the first lecture, so I'm extra happy about it. I'm also very pleased to see ex-students, mentors, colleagues. I thought it would be a smaller event, so you have to excuse also my rusty English. I haven't used it for a while, but I'm sure we can understand each other throughout the talk. In this morning, I will talk to you, again, Chilean morning and Mancunian afternoon. I will talk about how water scarcity has been constructed in Chile, how desalination has been actually imposed as the main solution to water shortages along the country, and what mine and others research results have to say about this. No, there are many things that we have talked with Armando that I should talk about today, so I will try to be both inclusive, you know, like try to deal with all the issues we want to talk about, and on the other hand, I will try to also, you know, like not try to be like to give enough detail for all the issues. No. Okay, so I think I have to start with the name of my presentation is Mining, Urbanization and Water Provision in an Arid Context, a critical analysis of desalination in the Antofagasta region in Chile. I have a political ecology approach to the water issues and my studies. So I always combine both physical and more social or political aspects. And for me, it's very important to start with a physical context. No, Chile, for those of you who don't know the country so well, is a very long country going from north to south with very varied water availability. And you can see on the right hand of the PowerPoint of the slide how water availability is increasing from north to south. We are on the southern hemisphere, so the world can be interpreted in a different way than us who are born in the northern hemisphere. So the north is very warm, is very arid. Antofagasta, Chile, actually in its northern part, it hosts the world's driest desert, the Antofagasta, the Atacama Desert. And this is where most copper extraction takes place, both in Chile, and it's one of the world's most important copper extraction sites. So we have a very dry north with very intensive copper and lately lithium mining. Then we have a central Mediterranean valley where you have very intensive agricultural exports. And this is the place that is most affected by a 10-year mega drought that has been torturing the country, no? And Chile, and then you have the southern part, which has like a much more humid and temperate climate, where, as you can see on the slide as well, where water availability greatly overcomes water demand. On the contrary, with the northern part of the country. And in the southern part, you have a lot of hydroelectric power dams, but many hydroelectric power dams that also cause conflicts with local people, such as the Mapuche indigenous communities. And there are also many salmon farms, no? So all these type of aquacultures in the south, mining in the north, and very intensive agricultural exports in the center of the sea of the country, condition, in a sense, its water scarcity, no? In combination with this geographically uneven water availability. On the other hand, as being as a climate change hotspot, added to that, we have a huge urban expansion, and urban expansion does not only mean that we have more need for human consumption, but also of higher quality, no? Now, this is like the physical context in Chile, no? How about the political one? Chile is a textbook, no, for neoliberal water management. It is based on an absolutely free market where supposedly the state does not interfere at all with how water is managed. There is private property on water rights, which are rights that give you the right to extract a certain flow of water, usually measured in liters per second. The actual legal scheme that defines how water is distributed and the property condition, the property rights on water is defined by the Water Code. The Water Code was I will say imposed because it was during the dictatorship. No, it was created. It was an idea that took place during the Pinochet dictatorship, and it has three main characteristics. First of all, the Water Code separated water rights from the land. So, no, in other places, a very typical strategy to have access to water is to buy land, and then you have all the water of the aquifers that go below it. But in Chile, this is not the case. No, so you have the water rights are divided from land rights; they are separated. So a person who lives anywhere in the world can buy a water right, independent if they have land or not. And the reverse, there are many farmers who have land, but they do not have water, no, because they have to buy it separately. Second characteristic of the Water Code is that those water rights, no, like water is separated into water rights, superficial ones and underground ones, and these water rights have been given to the people and companies freely, without any cost, and perpetually. No, so if I go to the General Directorate of Water in Chile, and I know that there is water availability in a river, for example, I can ask for 1 liter per second, like a water right equal to 1 liter per second, and they can give me this right. This means that they can give this to me for free, and I can forever and ever extract 1 liter per second from that river or aquifer, etc. And if I can sell this water rights even though they gave this to me for free, I can how is it, like not sell, but arrendar, Armando, if you can help me, I'm sorry, I forgot the, like rent, you can rent the water rights, so somebody can pay you so they can use this water right, and it's also transferable. I can pass it on to my children or give it away to somebody. No, so the water is mine once the water directorate gives it to me, and me, I can be a natural person, I can be a mining company, etc. The third characteristic of the water code is that there is no prioritization between uses, no? Like once the water directorate has given away all the water rights, no? There is no rule that says, okay, but first we have to secure, I don't know, ecological health, or we have to secure human consumption, or we have to guarantee the human right to water. This has been included in the water code very recently, like a couple of months ago, and I don't want to get very much into it because we have to wait and see how this is going to be implemented. But for 40 years, the water code has not prioritized neither ecological nor human uses before industrial, mining, agricultural, etc. So these three characteristics of the water code have ended up in having water transactions. People can sell and buy their water rights, they can rent them, so the idea is like, like based on the tragedy of the commons, the idea is that every person or community or company has their own water rights. They will take care of them because in some cases they have paid for them, and based on private property, this system should naturally, like achieve the highest efficiency in use. And also this market that emerges from the private property of water will naturally allocate water between uses. So the actors that most need water will pay more for it. And this means that they will take better care for it. This was promoted like a very technocratic, efficient, and supposedly apolitical distribution system of water resources. But many colleagues, including Jessica Budge from the University of East Anglia, who has very profoundly studied the water code, its sources and its impacts, including also Carl Bauer from Arizona. All of them, plus more newer, let's say, research have demonstrated that the water code has resulted in socio-environmental conflicts and water rights accumulation by the powerful politically and economically actors, like mining companies, agricultural companies, banks, financial institutions. All of these have a great accumulation of water rights because there's no limits to how much water you can have or what you do with that water. This causes scarcity and lack of access for the more disempowered, marginalized, and poorer actors and groups, And all this causes water insecurity for human consumption and water resources depletion. Water resources depletion has to do with the water code and also a very bad water management scheme applied in Chile, but it's not the case right now to go into that. What I really like is our colleague Jessica Budge. She says that the commodification of water in Chile is not merely like an outcome of the neoliberal model that was imposed by the dictatorship of Pinochet, but it's more a condition for the neoliberal model to succeed, because the water code succeeded in securing water for all the economic sectors that the neoliberal model and that dictatorship had as priority. No, so you have the mining sector with secured water rights in the north, in the world's driest desert. The same happens in the center with the agricultural sector, the big agricultural sector for water exports. And in the south, as I told you, there are many hydroelectric projects which essentially are important for mining in the north. So water along the country is useful for sustaining either directly or through energy production, mining and agriculture, which are the main economic sectors in Chile. So what I think I have delayed a bit in this first part. Armando, could you please let me know when I have like 5 minutes left? What has Chile done? No, under the situation that I was telling you, like the 10-year mega drought, the climate change amenaza, threat, no? So there have been many plans. Here I have some plans so that you can see that it is very important for the country to defend, let's say, climate change and water shortages. So you can see, like the National Climate Change Adaptation Plan, $26 million, $100 million on the National Drought Plan, $5,000 million for water use efficiency measures, and they all follow like what we would call like a hydraulic paradigm, no? Like kind solutions that are based on mega projects, solutions that are based on projects that need a lot of capital investment, no? And they also need external and international capital for them to be materialized, no? The solutions to water scarcity, here is like we could say like a resume of this, no? Dams, desalination plants. There is a water, I'm sorry, it's not a gigway, it's a highway. It's a water highway. It's a plan to take water from the southern of Chile and through submarine pipes to move it to the central Chile for agriculture. It's a very a very, I don't have words for this kind of projects, no? They don't make any sense economically, ecologically, socially, but there is a lot of money in the investment, no, of creating them. And Chile has no demand management, no, so there is very little management on the demand side, only augmentation of water supply, no public participation. People do not exist, neither as clients nor consumers, no. No integrated water management. There is no challenging the water code. Now with the new constitution, there is a new constitution being written in Chile, and there are many, people are really trying to change how water is not only managed, but also how it is seen, no? Not like a renewable resource that whose economic use is prioritized, but also they really try to impose the guarantee for the human right to water and to have a different relationship with nature. But all this is under suspension, we could say, because it's still being elaborated. And there is also no reflections on the water energy nexus. No, now everybody's talking about desalination in Chile, but nobody's talking about where this energy is going to come from. I don't know, sometimes when they consider renewable energies, they just want to, like full, fill the desert with sun power plants or aeolic energy farms, no, as if the desert was, I don't know, just rocks or sand, as if it wasn't an ecosystem who needs to be, conserved. So there is a lot to wait from Chile, in sense of what kind of solutions are given to water scarcity. And very lately, what I was telling you about public participation, something different is happening, public discourses are starting to put the blame and the solutions to citizenship. So we have to shower less. They kind of threaten. It doesn't sound like a threat, but it is at the end, that they were going to rationalize water. I don't know if the verb is correct, but have water cutoffs every few days. In the case that the metropolitan region of Santiago, which hosts some 7 million people, nobody mentions that there is a great hydroelectric plant on the berth of the main river. Nobody talks about Los Bronces mining mine that is also on the berth of the other important river that supplies Santiago with water. So there is a very closed vision on how water scarcity is constructed in Chile, and the solutions point mostly to the citizenship than extractive industries, water management model, etc. This is a very comic tragic. I don't know, both. It makes you want to cry and laugh. It's a news about how the president of the country announced this $5,000 million plan in collaboration with I don't know, the Netherlands and Israel and China, in order to double water efficiency. And by doubling water efficiency, we will manage, if you read the latter part of the slide, it says, with this, we will go from 1.2 to 2.4 million hectares irrigated. So he says that they're going to double water use efficiency in agriculture in order to double the surface that is cultivated. So there is a mix-up of scarcity measures with economic measures, no? So when we hear about efficiency, or when we hear about measures on scarcity, especially in Chile, sometimes it's really a boost for economic activities rather than water conservation or guaranteeing the human right to water, etc. So this is like a review of this is a review of research that has been done so far, a bit superficially, no? Desalination come in this context in Chile, where you have there is a really important bet on extractivism in Chile. There are very few voices that are very critical, no, like to mining, to export. I'm sorry, to massive export agriculture activities. So desalination only comes, as a part to say, okay, we don't have enough water, but we have all this coastline. If you remember the map of Chile, from one hand side, you have the Andes mountain range, and on the other hand, you have the Pacific Ocean. So the Chileans feel that they're actually looking at the solution to water scarcity by looking at the sea. Okay, and effectively, desalination can be a good solution in many cases. It's used in arid and coastal cities and water scarce areas. It can reduce pressure on freshwater resources. It has this imaginary of an infinite water resource, because you see the sea, and the sea is endless. So there you go. You have like this your infinite water source, the sea. And also it is a technology that uses a lot of energy, and it's very expensive, but there have been many technological and economic advantages, no? The direct impacts of desalination are usually the brine disposal, because desalination, I'm sorry, I'm talking about desalination, but I have not explained the process. For those of you who do not know it, desalination is essentially extracting water from the sea. Then you separate it through a very energy intensive process through membranes. So water passes through membranes, and then you have two different products. No, you separate water from its all of its components. So you have from one hand side a very clear water, which is actually distilled water, like H2O, which is not the water we drink, but it's distilled water. And on the other hand, you have a very concentrated brine, where you have all the components of salt water, like concentrated. So brine disposal is an issue, the high energy consumption is an issue, and the associated CO2 emissions. No, when we talk about desalination in a country that is mostly dependent on fossil fuels for its energy mix, no, where you have a predomination of fossil fuels in the energy mix of the country, then the mere function of the desalination plant implies that CO2 emissions, and this brings us to the drawbacks of desalination, no? And beyond the very local impacts of brine disposal, extracting water, where the plants are situated, etc. Desalination is essentially a maladaptation strategy to climate change. No, if we generate CO2, like that causes climate change. I'm sorry, this is a bit hard to explain, this vicious circle, no? So we are trying to adapt to climate change. Climate change reduces water resources. We put a desalination plant. Desalination plant needs a lot of energy. The thermoelectric plant that supplies with energy the desalination plant emits CO2, thus contributing to climate change, which is the same I am sorry, which is like the same event, or it contributes to the problem that it tries to adapt to, no, that it tries to adapt us to. So I think the maladaptation work is very interesting when we evaluate adaptation strategies to climate change. Then we have social impacts related to the price of desalinated water. So it depends a lot for who do we desalinate water for. Is it for the industry? Is it for the people? In Chile, there is a tendency to use desalinated water for human consumption. And everything indicates that they do not want water for the productive sectors, because the cost of water can make an industry non-profitable, no? So you cannot extract copper with desalinated water, for example, because maybe the extracted copper is going to cost much more than the desirable or the affordable, no, like I'm sorry, like the agreed price. And since desalination depends on energy, and energy comes from fossil fuels, fossil fuel price fluctuation can effectively have an impact on the price of desalinated water. So it is very unfair and very dangerous to trespass this vulnerability of price to the people, no? Okay, so I think I will carry on to the case of Antofagasta. So, what triggered this research is the case of Antofagasta. Antofagasta is a city in the homonymous region. It's a city and a region in northern Chile. The Antofagasta city is the capital of the Antofagasta region. Antofagasta region is the most important copper mining region, both in Chile and in the and we could say in the world. No, Antofagasta has more than a half of Chilean copper exports, and it represents 16 to 20% of global copper production. No, so it's very important not only for Chile but also for the global production chains that depend on copper. No, so when we think about the conflicts in Antofagasta, things it's much more complicated if we put on, you know, like the global side of this problematic. And Antofagasta is situated in the Atacama Desert. As I told you, it's the world's driest desert, and where most mining activities take place in Chile. So this is like a lethal combination, we could say. What happened in Antofagasta is that water availability became critical. So in 2003, the La Chimba desalination plant, that was the name of the plant, which is given to it by the neighborhood where it is constructed in the northern part of the city. So in 2003, the public sanitary company, the public water company, ordered the construction of the desalination plant, and then it was privatized. No, so the state built it through I'm sorry, I will focus a bit more. So in 2003, the public sanitary company built the desalination plant, and then it was privatized. So the new company who bought the sanitary company also bought its water rights, so the water rights that it could you know, take advantage of, and also the desalination plant. So we ended up with this huge sanitary company that was in control of water rights, of giving, supplying with water all the important urban centers in Antofagasta, and it was also in charge of a desalination plant. This water company had many contracts with mining companies in the region, and what happened is that previously water, I'm sorry, the color of this arrow is not the adequate one, but if you can see here, previously water was coming from the Andes mountain range to the cities for human consumption, but with the desalination plant, there was this fresh water or mountain water stayed, you know, aguas arriba, no, in the mountains, to be used by the mining companies, and in the seaside, where all the main urban areas are, people have started using desalinated water. So what we have here is like we could call this like a metabolic rift of the region's water metabolism. No, so water was coming from the mountain ranges to the sea, and suddenly, with the construction of more than one desalination plant, the cities started being supplied next to the sea with desalinated water, and all the mining, all the mines, no, were supplied with continental or mountain water. This was not when I asked the sanitary company why this happened. And in general, the general discourse is that the public discourse, we could say, is that the desalination plant was built because the city was being expanded, because more people were coming to Antofagasta. Yet in 2003, el Banco Internacional de Desarrollo, Banco Interamericano, the Inter-American Development Bank, already stated, it is here like with more at the end of the slide, they were already in 2003, which is the year where the plant was constructed, they were saying that water from desalination will gradually replace the current supply. Sun is the sanitary company, it doesn't matter. So people are going to drink desalinated water, and mountain water will stay for mining purposes, also through contracts with the sanitary company. So if we see it as an engineer, I always say this example, I'm really sorry for the engineers, it's not that I don't like them, but you know, there is usually like this volumetric appreciation of things. Now you have like this water here, you have this water where you kind of like distribute water, no? And what is important is volume. When I see it from a hydrosocial perspective, it is very important to see what kind of water each actor uses and who makes the decisions of who is going to drink what kind of water and who is going to use what kind of water. No, this is I will go back to this. I will go back to this idea, and this is kind of a Sankey flowgram that we created. It doesn't really matter to see all the flows in their detail, but it is very interesting to see all these different water sources that there are in the region, how these are fragmented, no? And which is the logic behind separating these water flows, deciding who is going to use desalinated water and who is going to use mountain water, and how water vulnerabilities are constructed through these water distribution schemes, where literally people are practically invisible. No, there is no public participation. Nobody told or asked people if they want to drink desalinated water, etc. So in order to understand what happens now with this breaking of the regions, water metabolism, once desalinated water entered its hydrosocial cycle in a way, we made analysis in 3 different levels. No, regional level, the urban level, the whole city, what has happened to the city, and then on the household level. So in terms of regional implications, there have been quite a few studies. I was surprised to see Antofagasta has called the attention of several researchers, mostly from a political ecology perspective or legal geography. No, Campero and Harris, for example, they also agree that the use of desalinated water has not decreased freshwater consumption, but increased water resources for mining. So actually what desalination did for the region was to increase water for mining and give the desalinated water to the people. In an article that we wrote with Jessica Badge a few years ago, we critically analyzed how desalinated water entered the hydrosocial cycle of the Antofagasta region, and we understood that desalination helps to stabilize the water code. No, when you have a distribution and property system that does not work, that causes conflicts, that causes accumulation, that causes or produces scarcity for few actors and communities who are already marginalized, not socially and geographically in some cases, then if you just, you know, like you plug in a desalination plant that produces like new fresh water in a sense, then you kind of fill the holes of the water code. desalinated water does not permit us to see all the failures of the water code, because there is a new source that comes in and does not let this scarcity be more visible, in a sense, no?
Tina?
Yeah?
We have a couple of minutes left.
Perfect. Okay, I can go to the, yeah, no problem.
Thank you so much.
So this is the idea with the regional implications. I think it has been made clear. Then we had a look on the urban scale. It was very interesting to see how the municipal green areas were increased in the city. If you see here, this blue line is 2003 when the desalination plant was installed. What we were interested in was not only to see how on the urban level, okay, you had more water, but we also wanted to see how this new water was, where was it consumed, no? And because the idea is that if you have an already unjust system or unequal system of water distribution, bringing in a new source is not going to change things. It's not going to bring justice. It's not going to bring water security, but it is going to maintain the same structure of distribution is going to be maintained. And it was very interesting to see that in the, for a very small example, now that the green municipal areas in the Antofagasta city, this is the city of Antofagasta, very similar to Chile, very thin and long. So if you can see, it is the southern part of the city that is more green, and it is like the most rich part of the city, no? So we can see an augmentation in water for irrigation, but only in the richest parts of the city. So we have more water, but we do not have more water for everybody, in a sense. Another thing that we saw, and it was very interesting, but we cannot talk about it right now. It has to do with like the water territories, the urban water territories that were produced in Antofagasta, no? There was one part of the city that was distributed with desalinated water, like this one, the darkest one. Then you have one in the middle where you have both desalinated and mountain water, and then the clearest of the blues, it's only mountain water. So inserting desalinated water in the city's water mix created three different territories, no, with three different types of water. This triggered us a lot. So we made some 1,000 surveys back in 2017. We wanted to ask people if they liked water. People do not know what kind of water. They do not know if they consume desalinated water or mountain water. They do not trust it. 9 out of 10 households buy bottled water, which duplicates the household expenses for potable water. These maps are to demonstrate that dissatisfaction of people with several organoleptic characteristics. If you see the first one, it has to do with water quality, and the red ones are badly evaluated. And overall, desalinated water has been worse evaluated than mountain water. It may be not statistically very important, but in a very stable way. In all characteristics, desalinated water has been worse evaluated. I think I will leave it here, and we can, maybe we can talk about the presentation or take it on from the comments of the people.